Welcome to Imperial Boxcast, your light in the darkness of the warp. I'm your host, Bill, and I'm joined by Dawson.
What's cracking, y'all?
There we go.
That's the way to do it, right?
Yeah, I got in trouble last time, so here I am. So, technical difficulties got us off about 10 minutes later than we wanted to, but you know what? It's better than not at all, right?
Yeah, it is.
Pretty sure we don't have anyone in our chat anyways. It is early in the morning.
Well, and I mean, we said, I don't know, like 6 months ago that we were going to do this once a month.
Yeah. And we did one so far. So
yeah,
I think people are.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Wonderful start. We're doing good. We're doing great. Yeah. Work and life makes these fun things hard sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've had some changes in my life. I got a job, so I'm doing that again.
Yeah.
My job is rough, though. Dude, it's really tough. Rough. Like, I don't know if I can handle it. I work at a game store.
Well, it's hard to get into something that you have no actual knowledge about, you know?
I don't know if that's a shot at me or what.
Nah, I'm just being sarcastic.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, man. I love it. Although it does mean that I end up spending a lot of time at work.
Yeah, well, I think you were spending a lot of time there anyways. It's just a matter of now
I get paid for a significant portion of it.
Yeah.
So there is that. But I mean, add that into the fact that, like, basically I work 4 days a week, just part-time. And then I'm there every Saturday, essentially. And that gets, it's like a full-time job that I'm not getting paid full-time for. It's pretty awesome, but at the same time, it's a little interesting to have, like, your interest monetized. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, that's everyone's dream. Now, just a matter of if it could be monetized well enough, you could live the dream all the time. That'd be great. But it's a stepping stone. It's something because you went back to school too, right?
Yeah, I ended up missing this semester because of a few things, but I am definitely back in school and will be going back next semester.
Cool. Very good. Very good.
So, what about in the realm of our great and impeccable hobby have you been up to?
I actually started painting again. I broke out the airbrush, started brushing up some of the Death Guard units that come in the Dark Imperium box set.
Now, why would you have picked Death Guard to start working on?
There's a myriad of reasons. So, of course, there's this obvious one that there happens to be a new codex coming out for them very soon.
And what else is coming out?
There's this model. I don't know. It's just this little thing, Mortarian. I don't know if
just $140 worth of Mortarian on a on a freaking flyer base. Holy crap!
Yeah, I ordered him, so I'm looking forward to getting him.
He's fucking huge.
Yeah, so I got that, and I got the codex coming in, and I hopefully will be getting some new paints too. My paints, like, of course, so I haven't painted much in like 2 years.
So everything's all dried up?
Yeah, everything's dried out. I had enough colors, luckily, that were still good to use to do the colors that I wanted to do for the Death Guard. For the most part, there were some things, like, I was like, oh, I want to do like this part brass. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, that's dried out.
Yeah.
So I tried gold, and I was like, that's too gold, like, and it didn't feel right for the model. So I'm gonna probably pick up some brass either today or tomorrow from the local game store.
You gonna stick mostly with the GW paints, or?
I ordered some Vallejo game color paints.
Okay.
I'm liking the dropper bottles, especially for the.
So good.
Yeah, especially for the airbrush, because I can just do a couple drops in there and squirt some some of the water solution in there that I use, and then mix it in with the paintbrush. Whereas, like, I was dipping a paintbrush into a paint can, putting it in there, swirling it. Then when I want to mix colors, I have to then have like 3 paintbrushes or 4 paintbrushes to use, and always cleaning them. So I'm like, this will just be quicker.
Yeah. No matter what it comes down to, I cannot help but think that dropper bottles are just a far superior solution.
I got to think that they probably in the long run will keep the paint better longer than the flip open ones.
Yep.
A lot less air getting in. So I had a white
guaranteed seal. Like, I get a lot of guys who say, oh, I thought I closed my paints all the way, but I guess I'm just going to buy a new set right now.
Yeah, definitely. In addition, like my Raven Guard, I have for the most part, I think enough things painted that I can field an army. Like, I pretty much have that army
painted, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's all I need, right? Storm Ravens.
I mean, well,
Scouts,
4 of them and Gilman.
Yeah. Yeah, no Gilman. I'm stick Raven Guard for a while.
Yeah. So. No, it's yeah. I joke about that because we've got we'll talk about that.
I mean, later. He's everywhere. Yeah, he's everywhere. So so the Death Guard needed a little bit of work, and those new models just look so good.
Yeah, they do.
That I wanted to get to painting. And then there's an alternative side, because I was looking at the Primaris Marines in there, and they're pretty phenomenal too.
They are very good.
But seeing as I feel that my Raven Guard are pretty much, I mean, I have enough stuff. Like, even like I don't need to add more like tactical, and I don't necessarily need to field Primaris to field that army. I'm thinking that I might try a different paint scheme for the Primaris, and I haven't decided. Like, I don't know.
There's a couple of things to take into consideration there. And I think one of the big ones is the fact that keep in mind that within the next 5 years, regular Marines will no longer be a thing.
Yeah. That's a big debate. Like, so I've been thinking, like, do I want to stay with Raven Guard and thus paint the Primaris in the anticipation that in 5 years or more, they'll be phased out? Do I paint something different that is like an easier paint scheme to do? Like, I know it's just black and white, but like, I'm trying not to do just black. Like, so I'm trying to do, grays fading into, black, dark, light sort of thing. So airbrush a lot and try to like make it work. But I'm not like an award-winning painter, and making a black army look good.
It's rough.
It's really tough,
really
to do
rough.
To a standard that I want to do it in.
What if you did like a successor chapter of the Raven Guard?
Yeah, that's definitely one of my thoughts. I mean, they've got several that you can choose from. I can always make my own.
Yeah.
I had taken that. There was an Ultramarine successor chapter that I did that was like red and black armor sort of thing. So it was very striking. It looks cool. I painted up a drop pod and a scout just for test.
Yeah, I think I remember.
Really liked the way it looks, but I don't know if that's what I want to do for like an entire army, because they were designed to be allies in the previous edition a little while ago, but not necessary now, really.
Okay.
So I don't know. Like, that's a big thing. So if anyone has an idea or has thoughts on that, I'll definitely mulling that all over. But in the meantime, I figure I'll paint some Death Guard, get those ready. Yeah,
Have you looked at your Slanesh at all and see, like, taking that out and like looked at
there?
Yeah, all right, because I remember you did so well with that army, like painting it up and getting it set, and I think that's. Like, I don't want to call them like a top tier army or anything like that, but I think that they're definitely would be a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, I need to get them on the table. Looking at the lists, like I just threw together a list based on stuff I had, and throwing that together, it looks good. Like, it looks like it would be a lot of fun to play. just the rules on it. Was it everybody that can do mortal wounds on a 6, like pretty much?
Oh yeah, it's insane.
Just would be a beat stick once it got in. Like it would. And now the fact that
it's so fast, it's gonna get in.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like in a lot of the deployment zones and stuff, you can start close, you can run forward. I wouldn't have a lot of deployment shenanigans, I don't think, because I don't think I would want to. I wouldn't risk it with trying to figure out some way to summon them in or whatever.
Your deployment shenanigans would literally be like, "Hey, look, all these guys go here."
Yeah, pretty much. So I'd be giving up a lot of first turns, I think, but depending on terrain and everything.
Well, I mean, like just to remember with like ITC, if you're playing ITC, you're only getting the +1 to go first.
Yeah, which is nice. Yeah.
I mean, so it's still a dice roll. It's not quite a 50-50, but
it's better than, oh yeah, you definitely go first because you brought an army that has a lot of transports or that has deep striking units, you know, like.
Yeah.
And now with the new edition, it's not really a big hindrance to deep strike because you can still do everything you could before. Still, you know.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, just remember that every unit you place in deep strike counts as one of your deployments.
Yeah.
So, I mean, deep striking doesn't really enable you to like give you less drops. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Because like as you're deploying, it's all right. I'm going to deploy this unit in a deep strike. That counts as one of your deployments.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, early on. I played Travis, and he brought a bunch of wave serpents.
Nice.
So it was like, I've got 3 wave serpents and a farseer, and that's my army. Like, I was like, oh, great.
Yeah, no, we've got a local guy who's running a single. His last 2,000 point list, his drops were, here's my Wraith Knight, here is my Wave Serpent, here is my unit in Deep Strike, because he had a Yvrain.
Jeez. Yeah.
And that was his list, and his everything inside the Wave Serpent were characters. Everything.
Okay. Jeez.
Yeah, basically he was just, it was nuts. He did fairly well with it. Not great, but fairly well.
Right on. I mean, whatever. If that's what you want to roll. I mean, the thing I have a problem with is you're putting all your eggs in one basket. So if you blow up that...
Yes, but it's a basket that can only be shot one egg at a time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because you can only fight the closest.
Yeah.
So you have to kill this guy, and then you got to kill that guy, and you kill that guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like it's rougher to do than you think it is. Yeah. Especially when I'm not gonna say it's hard to kill a vehicle in one turn, but
it's not easy though. No.
A lot of people were ignoring the vehicle to try and take the Wraith Knight off the table turn 1.
Which I get. I mean, that thing's gonna be a beat stick.
Yeah.
So you want to deal the damage there, but on the other hand, if you don't crack that egg open, you can't get at the yummy.
Yeah,
insides.
like I was looking at the whole thing, and I was like, I think based on your list, I just kill your transport turn 1, and then like whatever's left tries to put damage onto the Wraith Knight, and then I try and take the Wraith Knight out turn 2. You know?
Yeah, because you want to take away the mobility of the characters inside.
Yeah.
Make it so he can't put them exactly where he needs to and wants to. And then
the big bitch with that is that if one thing dies, the Yvrain shows up and just assaults you.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden, like anything you were using has a fucking hidden monster in the background. And then everything else is just smite spamming the shit out of you. And then every time something dies, they get to shoot you. Like they get to shoot you or assault you or do something. Because Eldar.
Yeah, because Eldar. Still a cool army.
It's an interesting army. Yeah. There were not a lot of people who know what to do, who had it figured out. It was interesting. I will say that I'm running 2 events a month right now. So like my first weekend of the month is ITC, and we do that 2,000 points. The only restriction on it is nothing above 31 PL from Forgeworld.
Okay.
So no Titans, none of that shit.
That's cool.
And
like I know ITC was talking about that. I don't know, did they
it's not an official ruling. It's up to each TO to make it. But talking with the store that I run the events through, which happens to be my job.
Yeah.
And just understanding what the I don't want to call it local meta, but understanding what like a lot of the meta going on at large events has made it so that I feel comfortable with that ruling.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, for like a local store, restricting power level basically just takes off some of the Forgeworld units that you wouldn't be selling through the store anyways. So,
and like that's not even actually the consideration because
you just want it to be fun, but
we want it to be fun. I also just don't want to see somebody show up with a Titan and have people who are new to the hobby walk in and be like, I'm just going to get like 2 of those and win the game. And the thing is that like those armies aren't winning at top tier events. So it's not going to change the way my event runs. What it does is it ends up sitting in the middle of the pack and creating negative play experiences for people in the lower middle pack. And that is something I want to avoid.
Fair enough.
I understand with ITC that might not be my job, but I think of it as an event organizer as something that I need to focus on because I think the community is the majority of my job.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing anyways is you want people to come and have fun, so they're going to want to come back. You don't want someone to come get stomped and have the feel badsies and not want to play.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I guess we should jump in because I only have, I don't know, another hour or so.
Yeah.
We were going to have a little discussion. A couple things came up, at least. One of which was Tasty Taste over at Blood of Kittens wrote an article about Forgeworld in the hobby and kind of how that's affecting the hobby.
It's really interesting because it's not even these big units that he's talking about.
No. It's there's like a 35-point unit that goes with Chaos, I believe.
Yeah.
It's a Psyker. And so it's cheaper than like any of the anything in the regular.
It is the cheapest Psyker in the game, I believe.
So you have these people who are just spamming these. So then you have these cheap, easy smite abilities.
Well, not
bouncing around.
Not just that, but once again, it's a character. So you can kill one a unit can kill one of them at a time.
Yeah, and that's if they're not being bubble wrapped. You know, if there's not, if you can find a way to get close to that unit, or you have snipers or something like that.
Yep. Like that's the thing is so there's a lot of these character shenanigans going on right now. We saw not LVO, but I want to say, or not, definitely not LVO. LVO hasn't happened yet. Not Nova, but one of the big tournaments right before Nova, people were just abusing the character lists by bringing like nothing but Gilman and freaking assassins. So the assassins you can't, like the characters you can see are all 6s to hit, and you can't cast psychic powers on them. And then the characters you can't see are like Vindicare assassins and Gilman.
Yeah,
and that's rough, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Taking away that part of the game, like the ability to play an army as an army, like, and fight another army. Like that takes some of the fun out of the game. Like you were saying with some of the restrictions. Now I know that's not necessarily illegal by any stretch of imagination. It's just not necessarily the most fun thing to do. So you've got Gilliman who's freaking boosting.
Well, what I'm hoping is that as we get more Primarchs, like Mortarion looks just like an absolute unkillable beat stick, right? Like 18 wounds, toughness 7.
Yeah.
You can give him a 4-up feel no pain with just a warlord trait.
Yeah.
Like, or
Yeah, I don't know if he
disgustingly
gets that warlord
resilient, I
trait or not, so we'll
apologize.
see. Yeah.
But like the ability to just even at 5-up, like
Yeah.
he's got a
It's
4-up
huge.
invuln, right? Like that's a lot of stuff to chew through. You're not going to do that in one turn. I mean, somebody will. It will happen somewhere, but
yeah, there's someone can put out enough damage, but
it won't be me.
Yeah, yeah, you need probably a lot of shooting ability.
Yeah, drop a lot of d6s on him.
Yeah,
and then just get lucky with damage rolls, and get really unlucky with them rolling 5+, right? But like I think as we get more Primarchs, I'm hoping that evens out the I'm bringing Guilliman in every list situation.
Yeah.
As for the Forgeworld like stuff, it's weird because I can see what Tasty is getting at, right? Like I can definitely see where Nick wants to get rid of Forgeworld and let the game shine on its own. I think the problem is that's not where I am seeing the game break down personally.
Okay, so you don't agree that like because his main thing isn't necessarily. I mean, yes, there's these cheap psychic units, but it's in general the Forgeworld models for 8th edition or the new edition have not been play tested to what he thinks the standard should be to fit into this edition. Now, they may have been for previous editions, and they've been very similar to each other for a very long time.
I mean, that's a complaint we've had about Forgeworld since I joined the hobby, right? Like, I remember when I first joined, nobody played with Forgeworld unless you were super rich and all of your friends were super rich, right? And then as the editions crept on, we kind of realized it's not that bad. And there was a big push behind, certain podcasts that shall not be named, to spend a few Carls on some stuff.
Yeah.
Shout out to the independent characters for real. But as you do that, like we got more comfortable with it, and I think it's fine. Like we've got a guy who plays Necrons, and he feels like the only answer in his list that isn't just spending 2 turns with his whole army shooting in a night is to bring a pylon. The thing with that is that the pylon literally, like, it gets d6 shots, and if it rolls 2 and then shoots a knight with both shots, that's a dead knight, right? Like, it just 2 shots knights all day long. Which is a pretty negative play experience for the knight player. So, I don't know. The interesting thing with that is that I don't think Forgeworld is the biggest problem here. A lot of people are using the rules of the edition against the edition. And I don't know if we used to do it as much. It's one of these things where I don't want to be like the old guy who's like, back in my day. But I feel like back when we were trying to maximize lists, it was like, hey, this unit is points efficient. It is strong for what it does. I'm going to take a couple of them, but I still need to make sure I have these other things available to me.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think 7th edition had quite a bit of
7th edition was weird, man.
Yeah, I mean there was a lot of let's use the rules against the intent. Like let's throw 50 different characters in a unit so that we get all the, special rules in the game and make it impossible to kill things. Or let's use this one psychic power on a unit that normally wouldn't have access to it, but because I can ally this in and, just make these weird shenanigans that were legal by the rules, I don't think were thought out well when the rules were being written.
Well, I mean, like the hard part of that is so like you can. I think that as a having done former playtest work, like if you want me to playtest out a codex and balance it, I think I can make that happen. Right now, if you want me to playtest out a codex and balance it for all of the 7th edition allies, I don't know that like a team has that kind of time and power.
It's really tough when you figure there's points in 7th edition where you can basically put whatever you want wherever you want it.
Yeah.
With very few restrictions. So you're looking at 16 different codexes who could probably use 7 or 8 of the different codexes together.
At least, yeah.
And make that work. So, I mean, I think there was, I mean, I'm not necessarily blaming them for that. I think they didn't foresee the consequences of saying, hey, we want you just to be able to play with what you have. So here's this ability to play with anything you want, however you want.
And it's interesting because you can see that they've definitely moved, I don't want to say moved away from that, but like the Allies matrices are no longer as nice as they used to be, right? Like Tau don't get to go play with everybody. Eldar don't get to go play with everybody. Eldar can go play with all of the Eldar, which is really nice, but you're still not going to bring in Riptides to your Eldar army. We're all a big fan of this. You know, the problem is once again, the Imperial can still do it, and that makes the Imperium kind of insane. What are they calling them right now? I think they're calling them Imperial soup armies are all the rage, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. The problem is like they say, is a lot of these Imperial soup armies are super fluffy if you actually look at it from that perspective. Like, you know, here's a couple of characters with a couple of units of Space Marines, and then there's a bunch of like guard and some artillery, and then you know a couple of named characters from the Space Marines and a couple of assassins in the background. That's like an actual army you'd read about in a book, right? Like 2 units of Space Marines goes and handles everything, but they still have all these guard in the background. There's a couple of characters that show up. Maybe there's a psyker that does some cool shit, right? Like that's an army.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
so I mean, then you just throw in the fact that there's Forgeworld units in there, in addition to all the other things that needed to be playtested and balanced out. I mean, I see his point that it's going to make it hard, and until maybe they get an ability to like playtest these all out, or maybe there just needs to be on it. The point level cap. It's one thing I've heard talked about before. So you guys doing that is one option.
I will say that in my opinion, the PL cap has kept. I've had a couple of players get upset about things like the pylon because, you know, 2-shotting a super heavy is insane.
Yeah.
But hey, that's what it does. You know what it does. Everybody knows that it's got the macro role. You can ask about these things ahead of time.
Well, and if you're bringing a super heavy, you're bringing Titans, you're bringing whatever, you should know the things that are going to be used to kill it. Like,
well, and not only that, but like you should just know that everybody's going to try and kill it.
And if you have the ability to bring a pylon or something, and then that now gets rid of that threat to you, it's like, yeah, you're going to do it. I mean, you're Necrons. You're not necessarily any more the top tier army. You're going to be a decent enough army, but you know,
they're a very solid middle of the pack army in my experience right now.
Yeah. Well, and they don't have much that's going to deal with the Titan.
No.
You know, easily. So they get the one thing.
Yep.
Besides the these Forge World issues, what else are we seeing? I mean, you're talking about the character
Guilliman is
lists.
like Guilliman being everywhere is a big problem in my opinion. Yeah. Like I think that he is actually currently my biggest issue is the fact that all you see are Imperial armies with Guilliman, and that's kind of the like standard right now, right? And it's rerolls are just, hey, guess what? Rerolls are good. Like that's new to us, right?
Yeah, all right.
So I mean, force multipliers are insane, and he multiplies all of your forces in a lot of ways, and is still an incredibly good beat stick.
Yeah, he's still a Primarch, right? He's still going to be able to rock that.
Yeah. I just don't know what the solution to that is. Is it to give him another wound? Oddly enough. Because the big thing is he's a 9 wound model, which is right under the cap. So you can't snipe him out. Like you have to get snipers into him, and hey, guess what? Things with the snipe rule, and not only that, but things with the snipe rule just unless you're really good at rolling sixes, they don't do a ton of damage right now.
Yeah, no. I mean they're cool. I mean, I'm gonna field some in my Raven Guard army, but
I mean, if you weren't an all scout army, as it were, would you?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't find points for sniper models anymore in any of my lists.
I guess it depends on how I'm playing too. Like if I'm playing points, probably not. The tax or whatever for the sniper in a regular straight out point game, I don't think is worth it.
I don't mind it too much. Like the single point cost for sniper level. Yeah.
But then you figure you're also doing camo cloaks and other things.
Not always. I actually
always,
think I don't do camo cloaks because people they're just not a big enough threat for people to shoot at them.
Fair enough.
And I think that's the difference being like the styles in our armies, right? Like you're bringing a lot of these, and the camo cloaks then all of a sudden really make sense. Whereas for me, I'm bringing a bunch of other stuff, and those are like ancillary choices that I'm using to back up and support my army, right? So I know for a fact that I'm probably going to have like Demon Princes or Thunderwolf Cav or something directly in your face that you have to deal with.
Yeah. It's definitely the difference in our place. Well, not as a play style, because I do have armies that do that, but I do like lots of troops. I've always had a thing for lots of troops, maybe because I started as a guard player, maybe because I feel that any army, whether current or futuristic, is not made up of all elite soldiers. You know, like even the U.S. Army, the U.S. military, were like really well trained. We're not all Navy SEALs out there. You know, like they do a little bit of action, and then the grunts, the regular army, the regular infantry units do a lot of the work.
Yep.
So I don't know. I still build armies that way. I like the look of the larger armies. But then I don't have the crazy beat stick units that you do, which are a lot of fun because you just like whatever, throw your fire at me. Bring it on, you know.
Although that's much less of a viable option in this edition, I think. Like nothing is unkillable now. You know, hey, here's a bunch of Thunderwolf Cav. Okay, I'm gonna lose most of those. Like I go into every game with my current list knowing I'm going to lose like 2 of these units, period. Even with 3-up invuln saves and 3 wounds apiece and all of the other shenanigans I can do to them, like healing them and everything. Hey, guess what? They're just going to die. But I'm all right with that, right?
That's the thing I like about this edition, too. It's like my sniper scouts can do something to anything. You know, like maybe not the best solution for a knight or whatever, but I could fire enough shots at a knight that I can at least do some damage to it.
Not only that, but you might sneak some mortal wounds through, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'll get some 6s in there, I'll get some mortal wounds, and then still force some saves. Throw some other things out there. Like I have a predator, last predator that I bought off tour that I've never painted up.
Talk about
I'm gonna have to put the thing together, right? You go from like no one took it.
Yeah, the quad Laspred is like we can't keep them in stock at the store right now.
Yeah, for good reason, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was talking to somebody and they were like, "Well, what about a Vindicator?" And I'm like, "Vindicators are great, right? Like I can shoot the Vindicator at a big unit and do a bunch of damage. The problem is there's not a lot of like five-man plus units that have multiple wounds, right?
Yeah.
So, like maybe Terminators.
Cav, one of the few, and Terminators. Certainly,
none of my lists run 5-man Thunderwolf Cav units. I cap out at 4 every time.
Okay.
And that's not even like a reason. I don't even use the Vindicator as a reason, but it just is the way the math works out. Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. So just the ability to be like, okay, I'm going to delete that and that and that. Or there's a knight. Let me fire all these last cannons at this knight and have a reasonable chance of doing either killing it or doing enough damage that you can kill it on the next turn.
Yep.
Like
absolutely.
So
all right, those are the things that make for important choices, and I'm all about it. I also think that some of those weird like other predators have a chance to come back, like the Daka Pred, which was like, what is it? Is it heavy bolters on the sides?
There's an auto cannons.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of shots, right?
Yeah, definitely. And if you're playing like points thing and not a power level thing, it's like you can save points and still put out a lot of firepower, and still be a good threat.
Yeah, and I mean even in a PL's choice, that might just be a better choice for your army depending on what else you're bringing, right?
Yeah. If you have other answers, you have a lot of devastators, a lot of whatever heavy fire. Beautiful thing now too, like if you take a bunch of squads and they have heavy weapons, you can always be like, all right, now this missile launcher here, that missile launcher there, that las cannon there, we're all firing at the Titan. We're all firing at that lander,
Like I am all about the way that playstyle works out personally, right? Like I'm gonna have my bolters fire at this thing because that's what they're good at killing, and I'm gonna have my missile fire at that thing because that's what it's good at killing.
Yeah. It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, right.
But that's one change I really liked, for sure. Because I'm not gonna fire my. Well, I guess you can fire a frag missile at infantry, but like I'm not gonna fire my las cannon at that infantry squad. I'm gonna fire it.
I do believe that one of the reasons why I asked you at one point, why do you have so many las cannons in your guard? And you were like, well, because Tor used to make a lot of 3-ups. And then I didn't want him to get 3-ups anymore.
There is that. Yeah, between Terminators and just straight not being able to kill Marines in my guard.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Kills Marines pretty well. Las cannons kill Marines pretty well.
There is no overkill. There's just reload.
Right, exactly. I've always been a fan of the overkill factor. Yeah. Those strategy games or whatever, you got to build things like Command and Conquer and all those.
Dawn of War.
I would just build. I just build a bunch and then be like, all right, now I've got enough. I'll send them in now. Like I work on defense to start with a bunch of units, and then I'll just rush with like land raiders and whatever the big stuff goes in now. It isn't always most effective, but it's how I like it.
The game's in a very interesting spot, and I think that there are a lot of people trying to make it better. But so that's one of my interesting things with Tasty's idea is that it very much limits the amount of change that we make to the game. I love the ITC guys. Nothing but respect for Frontline and everything they're doing. But every time you see a tweak come in, it becomes like another thing that I have to worry about. It becomes another FAQ I have to memorize. And like this was one of the problems with 7th is I had to memorize all the FAQs for each individual book. I have to memorize the FAQ for the rule book. I have to memorize the FAQs for how these things interact. And then I have to memorize, on top of that, the ITC FAQ that may or may not reference any of the above.
Yeah, and how that all works together.
Yeah, and then I have to remember, like, my order of operations.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
multiply divides, you know?
Well, it's like codex trumps rulebook trumps this. Like, because like right now, even there's that whole thing going on, right? Because we have codex trumps index trumps rulebook, FAQ trumps everything, ITC trumps that, right? Like that's the way my order of operations in a tournament setting has to work, and that's insane. That's 4 FAQs I have to have memorized just to run events.
Yeah. So I mean. Part of the downside, I think, right now of people worrying too much about fixing everything is that not everything's out, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't have all the other indices. Part of the way they did the point system and the rules, like the point level system and everything, was so they can make tweaks.
Yeah.
We've already seen it with the Chaos Codex.
Oh yeah, I mean we've seen it with the Imperial Codex. They dropped Power Fist costs, right?
Yeah.
Like that was one of my big complaints was that Power Fists and Thunderhammers, there was no reason to take Power Fists. Well, hey, at 12 points, there's a whole lot of fucking reason to take them.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the beautiful thing about the system, and it's tough right now because we have what 3 codexes, right? The 4th one on the way.
Chaos Green Knight Space Marines right now. Yeah. 4th is dropping literally Saturday.
Yeah.
Mechanicum.
Okay. Yeah, and then Death Guard is on pre-order or whatever.
Death Guard's on pre-order. We should have Death Guard by the end of the month. And then I think there's a rumor that we're getting like NIDS. There's Eldar at some point.
NIDS, Eldar before end of November, I believe. What I heard.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I don't expect them to just ignore October. I think we're going to get surprised by some of our October drops.
Yeah. And we might get NIDS in the middle, or like Eldar in the middle. But just before the end of November or something, we're supposed to have them. So there's a lot to happen here. So on one hand, I see the let's restrict Forgeworld until we've seen. Like I get that. Like I get his argument. Let's restrict it at least until we've seen it be altered. We have enough other things going on, enough other changes to worry about. Let's not add in another source.
Yeah. The only thing I can say for that, though, is as a community organizer, like I said, I run 2 events a month, right? Mm-hmm. So I've got my ITC event that's, we had 18 show up for my last ITC. So I'm seeing a real decent, spread of different armies and everything, right? Yeah. But my secondary event each month is supposed to be, a more friendly, less competitive, more like, hey, show up, get your 3 games in. This is where we're going to do our team tournaments, these kind of things, right?
Yeah.
And we just recently did a poll on what the community wanted for this month's event. And their choice out of 5 different choices was 1,500, no super heavies, no Lords of War. And then I said no Forgeworld on top of it. And that no Forgeworld thing actually got kind of some interesting kickback. So, the community wants Forgeworld, right? They want to play with their toys.
Yeah, and I get that. And I don't know, it it's hard to though be like, okay, this 35-point unit that is way undercosted for what it's able to do is not okay. But this other unit over here is okay. Like then you get people feeling bad because you're just taking away one toy. So it's like it's got to be all or nothing, and I guess it depends. Like, do you feel like, especially you got to look at the major tournaments. You got to look at the Open, the LVO, the all those things. Do you feel that allowing those units to play is better than taking away somebody's toys? And I don't really know the answer, I guess. But
for me personally, what I can say is that I think that those players that are doing what they are doing will find a way to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
These guys that we're talking about, like Andrew Gagno, who won Nova Open, Invitational, and Open, right, in the same weekend. That's insane. He pulled that off, and his list, like, it had some Forgeworld stuff in it, but not a lot. He's going to find a way to do what he wants to do. These players are of that caliber. I don't think saying no Forgeworld is the right option. That being said, I'm definitely all for not having actual Titans in my games.
Yeah, I think the power level cap is a nice way to do that. A nice way to restrict certain units. Because, like you said, it's not that they're the best units in the world. It's not like they're going to win the games. They're just going to make certain people's lives less fun for that game.
Yeah.
And, I'd rather have a chance, like, with the armies I bring. So, like I said, I bring a lot of infantry. I don't necessarily bring a ton of firepower for taking out Titans and stuff, which has been a big problem. Like, Knights have been a problem for me in the past. I haven't played against one yet in 8th, but that's been an issue. So being able to be like, okay, well, yeah, a Knight shows up, I still have a chance, at least with these guys that I've brought. But you're like, oh, a Warlord Titan, or not that big, but like a Warhound comes out.
Yeah.
And, well, great. That's fun. I'm sit here and shoot at that thing and maybe do a wound or two here and there.
Yeah, right. Like, and it still stays combat effective through 90% of the game. And they just put out so much firepower that they just delete units, right? So, I mean, if it goes first, you're literally losing like 2 or 3 units off the table.
Yeah, and that's not fun to not even have a chance to play with 3 of your units. Like, one unit you can kind of reasonably expect you might lose, depending on terrain, depending on deployment, all that, before you get to go. But, like, to lose a chunk, 3 units is a good sized part of an army.
Yeah.
To lose that is, I don't know, not okay. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
How are you feeling in general as far as the competition in 40K? Like, I know you had done, you were kind of playing more War Machine and Hordes for your competitive style playing.
I mean, to be honest, for my competitive stuff has been all War Machine and Hordes.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. I absolutely love 40K. I cannot stress this enough. I think the game right now is actually in a fantastic place. And if Silas lived here, or if you lived here, or if I lived near you guys, I'm sure we would still be getting games in, because the ability to go hang out with my friends and sit around, crack a beer, and roll dice is amazing, right? And that's, I think, what 40K has become for me. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, that's not a bad thing.
No, I mean, and for a long time, I think we've said that this is kind of what I think, at least the original creators, or at least the last several generations of 40K writers, have been trying to get us to be. Just come out and play the game the way you want to play it. Competition isn't really what we designed it for. So if you're trying to do that, just know you're hindered. And I think this edition's, at least it's the last edition, I think made me realize I don't like that style of play anymore. Like I'm not into that.
Well, I think my big thing, it's not even that style of play, it's what I have to do to participate in that style of play now. Even in the current edition, and it's something they started in 7th, there's like, I don't want to call it like a power creep going on, but there's a definite necessity to stay up with the latest toys, right?
Yeah.
And whether it's just like, to be honest, I don't want to invest that kind of money into it right now.
I get it.
Yeah. It's not cheap to keep a 40K army up to the standards it needs to be to participate in high-end events.
Yeah, that's the biggest downside I've had, especially with the last edition, the introduction of so many new units in the armies that I played, and I'm just like, and before, like last edition, I really, for most of the edition, I didn't have a lot of spare money. Like I'm making a lot more money now, so it helps. So I'm able to order Mortarion, I'm able to, order things like that. But in last edition, I didn't. Like I never bought Centurions. I never bought a Knight. Like the things I wanted to buy, but I had to choose feeding the family or buying a toy, and of course I had to feed the family.
I agree completely.
And I know not everyone's like that. There's people out there who can buy every new toy out there.
Oh yeah.
There's people that figure out a way one way or another. Whether you're a kid who doesn't have all the bills that we have, or whether you are a professional who was not
makes a whole shitload of money.
Yeah, who didn't goof off in high school and early college, so actually like tried to make something of themselves, and went on. So, like now I'm like, all right, cool, I can buy some toys, but I'm still gonna be like, what toys do I want to spend that money on? Because there's better things that I can spend cash on. Like there's more important life choices to make for me than do I buy the repulsor tank or do I put money in my kid's college fund. So
yeah, and I mean, to be honest, like as much as I love a lot of the models that have come out, nothing's been screaming at me to buy it.
Yeah.
Part of that is because like if I wanted knights, I would literally be playing an all-knight army or like all renegades with like 3 renegade knights and Magnus seems like it'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, for me, right? Like definitely not my opponents, which is one of the reasons why I didn't want to do it. But that's also $160 a pop if you can even get the knights, which as a retailer, let me tell you, are hard to get your fucking hands on.
Wow.
And that's $160 times 3 plus Mortari or plus Magnus plus whatever else I have to fit in because there's still like 150, 200, 300 points left or something like that. Excuse me. And it just probably not a lot of fun for my opponents. So, hey, let's not do that. Mortarion's awesome as hell, but he's a Death Guard model, and that's something that you've been into forever. I'm still not gonna go pick up my homeboy's army, right? Like that's like the unspoken 40K rule. You don't pick up your homeboy's army.
You're in Vegas, you probably could get away with it, but going back to the not wanting to spend a ton of money and start a brand new army, probably and he's not a cheap model. He's what, like 160 himself,
140. So. Yeah. He's 140 out the door.
I mean, trust me, ordering $140 model is not the top of my list of things I normally would do. But I'm like, I haven't bought any toys for a while, and I can paint one model and get it going. Because I still have a lot of my stuff is painted for Death Guard. I'm just painting up the new stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I like. That's the thing, right? Is I don't want to start a new army.
Yeah.
So I keep looking at things and realizing when the Space Wolf Codex comes down, there's a real good chance there's going to be some stuff I want to spend money on.
Exactly. And that's where your heart is, really. I mean,
yeah. Like when Rust comes out, I'm going to get Rust.
Yeah. So you think we're going to see a whole bunch of Primarchs returning?
I actually think that we see Mortarion. They've spoilered the one for the snake guy.
Furious?
No. The Emperor's Children.
Yeah.
They've spoilered him. I think what we are going to see is we're going to keep getting more and more Primarchs, because they are literally like these force multipliers, and if we don't get more of them, the game doesn't actually balance out.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, especially if you're looking at, we're going to have 3 on the Chaos side, and right now we only have Bobby G over there. I mean, there's enough that can come back, right? Russ is out there in the warp. Korvax is out in the warp.
Jangadai
so there's definitely options that they're out there somewhere, and now that the warp's torn open, maybe they decide to come back.
Right, and I think it's not just that, but like the old 40K, which was time for not Primarchs, right? And I think that people have realized that, hey, guess what? Primarchs are where all the fun shit is.
Yeah. On the other hand, I don't want it just to be a Primarch versus Primarch game.
I was actually thinking.
I think there's ways to deal with them,
because I was like, so I've got, if they release the Emperor's Children guy and then Angron, can I just buy like Angron, Mortarion, Magnus, and just make a Chaos army of all 4 Primarchs? Because I'd play the shit out of that.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would. I'd like to say you wouldn't, but no, I know that is true.
No, it's totally no. I would play the shit out of that. But I'm definitely not alone in this, right?
No, I'm sure there's plenty of people who would be like, oh, it'd be fun. Yeah, 4 Primarchs.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and cultists.
Just wait until like Russ is given, or just wait until Bobby G's given Russ rerolls, and then we'll see how you feel about it, right?
Still hate it because me, I ain't gonna buy all this, but
and like, don't get me wrong, you can already kind of almost do that because you've got Call and Gilman, and they're both like, Call is on par with Gilman almost.
Yeah.
So
he's a beast.
That box is hard to keep in stock, I will tell you.
Yeah, it's the only downside I feel is everything seems to be. I mean, it's how it's always been, right? Like, something's good, people are going to buy the hell out of it.
Yep.
Great. As a business model, I get that. That makes a lot of sense. As a player who doesn't want to keep up with the Joneses all the time, damn it.
Well, and like the big problem I have right now is, and this is like, I'm learning so much now that I have access to like the retailer side of things, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not on the phone with GW each week. That is not part of my job description. I am a lowly retail peon. Definitely that is Carl's job, not mine. But
love you, Carl.
It's amazing to me how unprepared they were for the popularity of 8th edition.
Yeah.
We ordered a Baneblade for a guy. My rep's direct words were, he's like, yeah, it might be a while. And we were like, when? And he was like, Christmas? We ordered this back in July.
Wow. You're like, Christmas in July?
Yeah. No? So that's like, and I get it, like, Baneblades aren't popular. Shadow Swords are, though, so hey,
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the website too, there's a lot of things that aren't available. Like the GW website, you can't order a lot of things on. Now, whether some of that's because they're phasing things out and bringing in new things, or like you said, just inability to keep things in stock, that's a problem. I mean, and if you're trying to build a competitive army and you're like, oh, I need this for this competitive army, and then it's going to be 6 months till you get it, that sucks. Now you got to rethink your entire.
Well, I mean, it just pushes you into the secondary market, right? Like, because if it's a new model, you can get your fucking hands on it, right?
Yeah.
You want more
but
charity?
A Baneblade, you think you could go to eBay and get it if you needed to.
But like the problem is that I can't get knights without scrabbling for them.
Yeah.
I can get
that's a
boxes
kit you think you'd have. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the kit that literally like showed them that they should shut down fantasy because knights outsold fantasy for over a quarter. And you would think that would be something that they would dedicate a lot of printing to, but they don't. And that's
Well, yeah. I'd still like to get one.
I'd love one.
I think they're amazing models, but I haven't gotten to the point where I'm ready to dedicate that kind of funds to it. I need to play a lot more than I get to in person to do it.
Yeah.
Still, I play more games on Vassal right now than I do in person. So,
yeah.
Hopefully that'll change. But it's just with the kid, it's tough to schedule. I need to find someone who lives like down the street. Just like, okay, it's 8:30. My kid's going to bed. Let me run over. I'm going to get a game in. I'll come back. Go to bed. Get up for work.
Yeah.
But
I mean, a lot of the guys, and that's why, it's interesting because we have a lot of the guys at the store who are in that situation. And it's like, they know that, and I mean, we get it out here a lot too with all the guys working in the industry, in the casino industry where, hey, Saturdays are real bad for them. So what we've done is set up, the store's got we call it our LFG page, right?
Yeah, looking for games.
And you just have to go in there and be like, yo, I've got 3 hours next Friday at 11 to 2. Who can meet me at 11 so that we can get a game in and be out the door by 2 so I can go pick up my kid from school?
Yeah.
And that's the best thing I've found for that kind of situation. But you and I have always, and I think it's partly because of the way that we came into the hobby, right? Like, we were very lucky at one point to have a significant portion of our friends all playing the game.
Yeah, yeah. If you wanted a game, you're just like, all right, group text between the 7 or 8 people we knew that played, and just go like, who's available tomorrow at this time?
Yep.
And or one of them at least is going to say yes.
Yo, we're going to show up for the podcast. We've already set aside a couple hours here for that, tacking on 2 more hours, and that was before you had the kids, so life was simpler then. But it's very interesting to me that I find that I am very loath to go out and be like, yo, I'm just going to play games with anybody who walks in the door.
Yeah. It's tough because you never know what you're going to get. You never know. It could be the best guy in the world, hell, even me up with Tall Mike. He hit me up when he got in town, and we talked a little bit online, and then it's like, yeah, you seem like a cool guy. Let's get together and meet. I love that guy.
Oh yeah, he could have been a fucking axe murderer.
He's awesome, but he could have been totally crazy, and or that guy that you run into at the game store who just nonstop talks about the army he had back in 1995.
Doesn't fucking shower.
Yeah, doesn't shower. Isn't is a horrible human being.
Yeah. And thankfully, Mike was none of those things. He was a great guy, and God, the podcast misses him. I will say.
Oh, I do. I miss him. He's working on painting a night, but he's got right now. He's gone back to school for a master's, so he's really kind of been out of the hobby. He played from what I've heard, 1 or 2 games, and he wasn't digging 8th edition. But we'll see. You know, hopefully when he gets to play more, it'll grow on him, or he'll figure out, you know, where it is. But yeah. Anyways, speaking of picking up kids from school, I need to start getting going for that.
Okay.
So thank you everyone for joining us. We kind of hit everything we wanted to hit anyways.
Yeah.
Feel free to, please like, subscribe, pass it on to any of your friends. Let them know where we're at now. But feel free to comment your thoughts on Forgeworld, on competitive play, restrictions, or even just how I should do my Primaris Marines. Should they be Raven Guard? Should they be a successor chapter? Should they just be a random paint scheme I find in the book? Or should I come up with something on my own? Love to hear from you guys.
Yep.
Thanks for coming out, guys. Bye.
Later.